everyone. Welcome, Internet. Welcome to our podcast, Hey CTO. This is the second season. Today with us, it's Sandra Costa. Sandra is a senior manager for software development at Bosch in Braga. Sandra, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, no, obviously. Thank you. So me and Sarah, we are here today pretty much, to talk a little bit with Sandra to let everyone know, a little bit about yourself. So I think we can start, with the usual question that is, tell us a little bit about yourself. So who is Sandra? And we'll take it from there.
Well, I'm born and raised in Braga for more than 30 years, 35
nice.
Actually. I'm a mother of a very sweet 2 years old young boy, which I'm very happy.
Congrats.
And one of my last achievements, I would say, and very challenging project, but it's lovely to become a parent. My background, I studied in the University of Minho electronics engineering. That's my base, my background. I did my master and then I pursued my Ph.D. in robotics. So basically using humanoid robot to interact with children with autism.
And was it all in sequence? So you finished your degree, you go after that master's, after that PhD. So it was everything.
My master was already integrated according to Bologna. So I basically did the transition in the third year. We shifted to integrated master, and then I had a 1 year break where I did the research grant, where I also had to increase my grades to get the scholarship from FCT, our national organism that provides scholarships for research. And then I started, and in 4 years I finished my PhD, where I also had the opportunity to do some internship in England, summer school in Greece, and several conferences. At the time, it was also my motivation to publish articles was also to go with nice conferences where I can meet other researchers and also get inputs for my work. So that was awesome.
That's super interesting. And if you, now looking back, so do you see the influence that those experiences abroad had in you? So you now look and say, oh wow, no, definitely, going to England, in Greece, that definitely made the professional that I am today.
For sure, leading with different cultures and this diversity of different backgrounds, different ways of viewing things definitely help to shape the style of leadership and style of work that I have nowadays, and helps me every day to deal with the colleagues that I have to work with. So it was very beneficial.
Fantastic. And the autism and that topic in particular that you worked on the PhD, is that something that you pursue that because you had you want to have an impact in society? You were already in that sort of stage that you want to give back, and you definitely you put a lot of weight and emphasis on the impact of your work? Or was that something that happened by chance, or because of any teacher that challenged you on that topic in particular?
So I don't have actually contact with no one in my family or close friends have children or people with autism spectrum disorder. However, I knew that I wanted a particular teacher to be my mentor or my supervisor in my master. I already started with a master thesis, and she presented to me several themes that I could choose to do in my master. And as soon as I heard about this topic, this is definitely what I want to do. I want to do something where the technology is in the service of a human being and not just some automatic stuff in a company or fabric that no one, it's going to save money. Okay, cool. But yeah, this social impact was not there. I was not so into it. So when she presented to me this topic, I was very, very committed, and that's why I did it through my master with the simple Lego robot, because it was what we had available in the laboratory at the time. And then through a European project, we were able to acquire a humanoid robot with specific polymer in the face that was allowing to modulate model some facial expressions, and hence my work in the PhD was focusing on emotion recognition, imitation, and also storytelling to identify emotions in a character, and with that develop these skills in children with autism in a certain criteria, with a certain age, with a certain level of autism, and so on. And I did what is not so usual to see in this kind of work, which was a research in groups and not in individual children, let's say, because it first is not easy to find like a group of children with the same characteristics, because there's a big spectrum that goes from severe to some more like high functioning level of autism spectrum disorder. And but I was able, with many partnerships with schools and clinics and institutes in the north of the country, to gather enough children that I could compare using the robot, not using the robot, and even let's say control group, to see if using this tool had an influence in developing this kind of skills.
Super interesting. That's interesting. And you were able to see those differences during that research?
Exactly. So basically, then a big part of the work was also to analyze the data that the robot was also collecting, in terms of there was like computer vision involved a tiny bit, and also sorry, this was already 10 years ago, so I have to
No, for
recall
sure, of course.
the details, but also some video observation from the behavior of the children to see if there were some social interaction promoted. So for that, I also had to read a lot about what does it mean if they somehow do some nonverbal communication or gestures. What is the child interested or not, or is it just like not paying attention? And some kind of a markers we have to identify, and then to observe in the videos of interaction with the robot, to really see if this social interaction was being promoted or not, and from the game scenarios that were developed, if the skill of recognizing emotions was actually being acquired or not.
Nice.
So it was actually good results that were published, and it was besides the thesis, there were also papers and articles being published internationally.
Yeah, and I can see that's something that you enjoyed a lot, because it passed so many time and you still talk about it with passion.
Yeah,
And,
it was a wonderful time. A lot of work,
yeah,
but it was very good, because you could see directly the impact of your work.
yeah. Now I'm curious. So now we know how you entered your first steps in the technology world. What about what you have been doing lately? Could you tell us a bit more?
Okay, actually, it started before, but it's okay. We can go into the future. What I'm doing at the moment, I work in an international company called Bosch, that most of you either somehow have either an appliance in your kitchen, but definitely all of you have electronic component in your car, even if you don't see it. Many of those are made by Bosch. I actually worked then in the automotive industry, and I started in 2015 in the company in a software team to develop sensors. It grew up into developing sensors for autonomous driving. And this is basically what me and my teams at the moment, as a role of senior manager, we are doing. So big part of these sensors are being developed in Braga, not only in software domain, but also mechanic and electronics in hardware. And we are making a big contribution for this domain, and growing and growing. So the thing is that our counterparts in Germany mainly are also recognizing the competence of the Portuguese professionals, and are placing more and more requests for us to grow over here. And we are at the moment unstoppable. So we're very happy that the organization is growing so much.
That's awesome. I think that every time I hear a story about a company that places a bet in Portugal, tries out maybe with a small working force or things like that, and then all of a sudden you start to see kind of us getting that sort of very positive momentum of having more projects, need to hire more people, and definitely increasing the footprint of that company in Portugal. I think that's I love those sort of stories. Those are remarkable. For
Yeah,
sure.
if you want to know, like since 2015, when we started software development for products here in Braga, we started with a team of 6, and then every year we double the headcount until
Fantastic.
2020, where things stabilized a tiny bit, also because of the industry, but also because
Sure.
of COVID. And now this year we are about, let's say, 60 or so, and we already have requests to double again our capacity.
Super
So
nice growth. Wow.
that's
Super
pretty
cool.
good.
And tell me one thing, and we are talking about, increasing your footprint, doubling, the workforce, year after year. And you didn't join last year, so you joined quite a long time ago. So I'm assuming that you were one of the first, or one of early ones to join that sort of project. And you started as a software developer, software engineer,
Hmm.
if
Yeah.
we are right. So I have pretty much like here almost 2 questions. So one is how do you see this sort of growth from the inside?
Hmm.
So how I think that probably should be like super challenging, because one thing is a team of 6, then all of a sudden a team of 12, a team of 24, 48, and so on. And how do you make sure that you keep the culture, everyone still understands, the values and the principles of Bosch, and how can you really nurture that sort of kind of culture throughout time, and you observe that from the inside. And then as a second question, I want to know more about your transition from software engineer to manager.
Hmm.
But we can start with the first one.
Okay, from the inside, of course, growing at this speed is not easy. And what Bosch had to do was also to bet a lot on competence management and trainings to the existing employees, and also when getting guys from the market to also get some guys with some experience that would bring then this knowledge inside of the company.
Sure.
Already at the time was not easy. Nowadays is even harder, but we do it step by step. And at the time, so 7 years ago, we also introduced the agile methodologies. So we
Mhm.
started with the Scrum team, and then pretty soon, in a couple of, let's say, in half a year, we started with Safe, so the scale Scrum,
Yep.
because there were already so many teams, not only in Portugal but in India and in Germany, and then later also in Budapest, that we all have to work together. And for that, we use also methodologies that support this synchronization of the teams. On the second, I hope I answered the first question.
No, that was great. And the second one is definitely super curious to understand, how you moved, from being an individual contributor, being one of the first kind of, joining a project, and definitely seeing this opportunity, to grow your career, to take it, to a management perspective. And how was that for you?
Yeah. So one aspect is that I don't know if you know what girl guiding is. In Portuguese, is Associação Guias de Portugal.
Okay.
This is an association I belong since I'm 7 years old,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was also created by Baden-Powell, which you know most likely that created the Scouts. So, and in America is called like Girl Scouts. And since I'm 16 years old, I'm already a youth leader. Let's say taking care of organizing stuff in general, taking initiative, being used to reflect and evaluate, doing retrospectives, reviews, these kind of things. Even that they didn't
Okay.
have these names, I was already doing it since many years. So for me, it was natural to step up, to volunteer, to do things, and somehow being there, volunteering, taking initiative, also was noticed by my managers at the time, that I was okay, maybe can take a scrum master role, and then later product owner role. And at some point, when my boss returned to Germany, because we had a colleague who came for a couple of years to ramp up the team, and then
Mm-hmm.
eventually he will go back. So he went back and left to, let's say, a similar position as his, and me and another colleague got promoted to a senior manager role. And yeah, and it started basically like that. When you show some work, you show like that you are able to do it, then you end up getting the job.
Yeah, you showed the
That's
potential, and they took advantage of it.
and also the things that are pretty much personal, right? Because not only is kind of you showing management and leadership skills, but also I think that from the moment that the company, and in case your manager is interested in your personal life, understand that you already had the pleasure to do things on your free time and things like that. I think that also plays an interesting part, right? So I think that sometimes people really tend to think, that work life is in a box, and our personal life is in another box. But
Everything
sometimes
is
we
mixed.
actually have a nice example of how things can actually kind of, be mixed, and mixed in a good sense, right?
Yeah,
This is a
absolutely.
great example.
But this was also part of the hiring process that they collected and tried to, I believe, now I know because I also do the hiring, that you try to make out of the team also this healthy mix where you have people with different experiences and that went through different leadership tasks in other contexts that then you can bring inside of the company and also use it for the benefit of the team.
I need to ask something that you mentioned there in the middle of you sharing. So the team was starting to grow. You tried several methodologies. You passed to agile. I don't know what you used before, but now we are using safe. What were the challenges of the teams with all of those changes? They adapted well? They
Yeah.
reacted well to that?
Good question.
Before we were not using anything because the team didn't
Okay.
exist. Everything was set up new with the creation of our team. So we were 6.
Okay.
And besides the classic development that was used in Germany, that we didn't even try, let's say the waterfall model, we didn't even went there. We always work with agile. But the challenge was that we were a new team in a new company with a lot of abbreviations that it's pretty standard in Bosch that we get overwhelmed with so many little letters. Working on a new product, working with agile, which was also new to us. So this mix was a challenge that many things were new, plus also the even that the processes are known in the automotive industry in a very structured way, then the way you deploy them in the project using different tools somehow needs some adaptation. So we also had to go through that. So everything new in this sense made it a tiny bit harder, or more challenging to move faster. So it took a lot of work, but nowadays we can see the results.
Yeah. And the transition to safe, was it easier or?
We got some consultants also supporting us in the project. So mainly this was done first in the project called BMPS, so Vehicle Motion Position Sensor. And we were already at the time 6, 7 teams working worldwide. And I'm talking only about software because then there was also teams in the system, hardware, and so on. And it was not easy, but we also did it in a gradual way. So first introducing PI plannings, and at the time we were already doing PI plannings all together. So we would all fly to Germany, or at least part of the team, or the product owners and scrum masters, so we could very quickly check the dependencies, solve them, see where there were some conflicts that people could not deliver in sprint 1 or sprint 2, and solve it on the spot. So it was quite nice. But yeah, it takes its time for new people who are like continuously joining the company to get a hold on how all the methods are being deployed.
And just going back a little bit back on our conversation now that we are talking about change and change management. So you definitely had a very strong record in terms of academia. So you took your degree, masters, PhD. So definitely you joined a little bit. Let's say I don't want to say on average, but usually people with 22, 23 maybe they start joining the industry, and definitely you invested more on your academic side, and then you joined the industry later on. Was that shift something that it was very peaceful for you, and so moving from a very driven investigation sort of career or duty to all of a sudden becoming part of a team in the industry and so on? Was that something that it was just a very natural shift for you, or do you remember if you struggled a little bit with that and how it was for you?
No, it was okay. So I made a very conscious decision. At the end of my PhD, I did, I guess, what most people do at the end of a degree. They go and look for jobs. And at the time, I had both a job proposal from Bosch, which I I basically submit my profile and got some interviews, and I got also a proposal from a research laboratory in Lisbon to continue as a postdoc. And I
There you go.
remember, yeah, I remember thinking like, okay, if I go for a postdoc, most likely I will never leave academia. I become a teacher or something like this, which is also okay. Which is
Sure.
also okay. But I was like, okay, if I don't try it now, most likely I will never try it. So maybe now it's time to try something different. So join the industry, one industry that somehow is also present very strongly in my city, but that was not, let's say, a condition. So if I had to go to Lisbon, it was also okay. I was used to go to other countries, so no issue. But it was also this innovation that was also inspiring me to take this option of joining Bosch and then check, okay, does it work? Yeah. If not, let's check something else. And it worked.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And now that we are talking about those times, I'm curious about something that I caught in your LinkedIn. So it seems that you created website for Portugal feminist football, right? How did that
Oh,
happen?
that's
How
interesting.
So
did that appear?
this is when my tech, well, let's say, in first endeavor started. Around high school, or even previously, I played football on the road next to home since I was in primary school. And when I was 13, I joined a team, 11-a-side team in Braga, in a nearby parish. At some point, I was very angry that there was no information about women's football on TV, on newspapers,
Ah,
and so on. And I joined the internet club at my high school, and I learned how to do websites in front page and HTML and CSS and all these things that most of the people around me didn't know anything about. And then I created a website for my team just to publish some pictures, horrible picture, by the way, no quality or anything, no design, horrible. That's not my thing. But it became attracting some attention. And then I start publishing pictures from news from other teams, because otherwise no one was going to visit the site just because of the articles about my team. Then I changed team. I created another one with WordPress and so on. I was like looking for new things to do, and the club didn't like very much that I was publishing articles from other teams, which is fair.
Oh,
Which is fair. It was the page of the team, so it should have things from the team. So like, okay, then I will create something a tiny bit bigger. And then the Portal Futebol Feminino em Portugal came up. And basically from that, it was more than 10 years ago, and for long time it was the higher, or the place where everyone was going to get results from the games on the previous day, top of the scores of the championship, articles and interviews with players. Everything was there. I was not doing it
oh
alone,
wow.
for sure. I had like let's say a team of volunteers who just liked the project and wanted to join, and they would just write posts and put it there with their name and get feedback and publish. Then social media came up, which also helped getting a tiny bit more boost. And yeah, it is also still a lovely project. I'm not so active at the moment. I delegated to a colleague who wanted to continue the project, Sara Salgueira, and she's using it also for her portfolio, for her studies, and it's being kept alive. Even that now we have Canal 11, we have Bolo, we have like all the other
Yeah,
channels
so many
now.
sources. You need.
Yeah, talking about it. For me, it was a wonderful experience because I could learn a tiny bit more about tech. At the time, building websites, not so sophisticated, but at least it was, for me, what was reachable. I met a lot of people. A lot of people like was giving compliments and thanking that was existing, because there was nothing. And for me, I felt that, okay, I'm giving some value to someone, so let's keep going. And it was very good.
That's definitely a trait that at least I think that we are seeing you. That definitely I see that you're searching for things that you can definitely kind of have an impact, social responsibility, giving back to the community, which is something that is super interesting. I'm wondering, I also saw that you were also attached to the IEEE in university. Now I think that the Portuguese Women in Tech is also that you are also involved. So do you see this as something that is just, it makes you more complete? You search for these sort of things because it just makes sense for you to, to do this sort of participations and collaborations. Do you see that are these sort of, associations that search for you and then the collaboration starts? How usually that sort of things happen?
Yeah, both ways. First, I have a big problem in saying no when some projects or challenges came up, and I want to say yes to everything because
Sure. You want
most
to
of the
help, you're
topics are
enthusiastic, right? Sure.
yeah. This the women in tech or the IEEE no sorry the IEEE Women in Engineering topic came up in 2010, where I was not part of a nucleo. I don't know the students branch that from IEEE at the time. I was not part due to playing football basically 3 times a night and on the Sunday, and this was based in Guimarães and not in Braga, so I couldn't join. But while I was doing my PhD, some students and some professors joined to start this affinity group from IEEE for women in engineering. So I'm also advocating for having more women in engineering, tech, and so on. So I immediately joined to support with whatever I could. We created the group, then we let's say spread the seeds to create student branches already in several universities in the country. At some point I became also the chair of the group, because we rotated also to split the work, let's say. And it's a group that I'm constantly in contact with when it's needed for some talks or whatever. At the moment, I'm not directly connected to them. Like I don't have a role within the organization, but I'm very happy that I'm part of the history, and that somehow also in the student branch they are promoting more and more these role models, courses, talks about why do we need more women in tech and in engineering in general. So I think they're doing a great job.
Speaking of which, and one thing super interesting. So Sarah actually found out, that you gave an interview where you mentioned, that there was a lack of women in tech, right? And definitely you saw that, or at least you're saying that you don't believe in the discrimination of the industry. You definitely see a lack of talent. So there are very few women working in this industry, and definitely way less diversity in this industry in Portugal than I think that it's fair to say that we all wished for. And maybe this is super elaborated question, but how do you see us as a country, as a community, addressing this problem? I think that it's very clear that definitely diversity is something super useful for companies, in terms of competitive advantage, culture, different ways of thinking and approaching problems. Now that we realize that we lack women in the industry, did you ever thought about or think about how we could eventually address this, or what could be a meaningful first step to address this challenge that we are seeing here in Portugal? Any sort of thoughts?
Yeah, I see this in 2 ways. So first, continuing the work with the high school, let's say, where basically the teenagers choose their degree, and sometimes they are heavily influenced by what the others think. And this kind of work that, for example, the student branches from women in engineering and any other and several other valuable groups like Geek Girls, Girls in, whatever, there are many of them doing an amazing job to bring this information more to the students, that they can make a conscious decision about their future, not based on the parents or others' opinions, and what basically they like to do. So that is one aspect. Then I think also the companies have a say on that, to provide also this we can say work-life balance, but also family values that somehow young females or female employees can also have the right conditions to make a balanced life between family and work. So in some companies we know about, okay, if you go to an interview when you're pregnant, or I get to know that you're pregnant, you hide it until whatever. And until we still have these kind of situations, they will just run away. It's in general, not only in tech, but we have to make the tech companies more family friendly so that then more women can also go through the process of joining and then becoming role models to other younger females, and that this is then a virtuous cycle, that a couple of years this is not even a subject. I hope it's improving. In the last years I see it improving more and more.
And I agree with you that it needs to start like in early stages, because we are very influenced by the patterns that we see around. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you that it needs to start there. And it's good to have like active members like you in the tech community, because eventually your example will also reach out to these girls,
Yeah,
even
inspire
with these
them.
I hope so.
episodes, for instance. And something that I also had to ask you is your participation like in those communities, and another one that we didn't talk about yet, the TEDx. I think
Yeah.
those talks are also can also be inspiring for other people. And could you tell us also a bit more about your experience in TEDx? What were the topics that you talk about there?
How
Sure.
was it? Is it frightening to
Yeah,
speak to
the whole
1,000 people?
experience.
Yeah, it's very frightening. So I actually had the chance to attend or to speak at two events. The first one was TEDx Youth Braga, and this
Mhm.
invitation came also to share about the work that we were doing at the time with robotics and autism, but also the women in engineering. So like that tendenциally we also choose topics that have this impact in the world, and that was basically the topic. Then for the TEDx Porto in 2019, the main topic was trust, and then they wanted someone related with technology or autonomous driving at the time that would talk how can we trust this new technology and just like close our eyes and go from A to B without any problem. And it was challenging because I'm at the office and at work. I'm very used to make presentations, technical presentations, numbers and facts and so on. And over there it was about storytelling. It was about to
Yes.
get the guys tell a story, why is this important and so on. And this involved a lot of, so for many people it's not obvious the work that is behind preparing those presentations, even the visualization that is like understandable by everyone, the kind of words that you mention, the examples that you give. So it was challenging for sure because it's a different style from what I do day to day. But I learned a lot. I met a lot of people who gave valuable feedback, and for sure I grew also in presenting in such a way that I can pass the message that has also I hopefully hopefully has an impact also on who is listening to it. So it was a wonderful experience.
Very nice. Well,
I have one
okay,
thing to add on your previous
yeah.
question regarding the choosing the degree and talking with younger teenagers, I say that they are
Yeah, yeah,
choosing the
yeah.
path. There was one time when one girl that was already in the first year of engineering, I don't remember which one, that told me that in high school, in her high school, which was more in the rural side of the country,
Mm-hmm.
they used to like separate boys from girls. Boys goes to this room and they're going to learn about engineering courses, and girls go to this room and they are going to learn about sciences and so on. And
Really?
Oh,
this still
wow.
happens
Wow.
now. So this was, I guess, more than 5 years ago. I don't expect that this is very common, but while this still exists, that somehow these
Yeah.
speeches are directed according to our
21st
gender,
century.
we are
Yeah.
in a bad state. So
Yeah, that's the
that's why
problem.
these groups, these different groups that are working somehow according to their guidelines and inspirations, backgrounds, still make sense nowadays. That we don't have this kind of behavior from educational institutes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's good
Sure.
that we are here to share the stories and inspiring more
Yes.
people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly right.
Yeah.
good.
Well, we are reaching to the end of our conversation, but
Indeed.
we still have like here three special questions, the final ones. I think I can start with the first one, Pedro.
Sure.
What do you think? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
So Sandra, what do you believe is your superpower?
My superpower. At least the feedback I've been receiving is that I'm empathic. person.
Mhm.
And this helps me also in my day-to-day as a leader, because we cannot only base our work in, at least as a senior manager, cannot only base our work in numbers and facts and so on. We have to have in consideration that there's another person on the other side, and that person deserves individual consideration. And this also helps me be a better leader, I believe, and that everyone has success in their work and feels better doing what they chose to do.
I definitely, thank God. And now that we are talking about trends, and you gave, an example where, unfortunately, we separated boys from girls to talk about engineering. I'm definitely seeing now a trend, that empathy is becoming one of the key traits of a leader. At least that's what we've been talking about in these last couple of years. And I completely agree with you, Sandra. I see, that really one of the things that really make the difference from a manager to a leader is actually the empathy and the ability to inspire others to follow them. So absolutely, that's a great superpower. Really interesting. Super cool.
Thank you.
Now, second question. So if you could choose, something different to do, even if, for a couple of minutes, maybe it could be an hour, even maybe like a day or so. If it would not be, software development, what would you like to do? It could be something, like, oh, look, exactly. Even that, anything goes.
It would be to have another superpower where you just like snap your finger and you can jump to another country, another.
But you need to be a profession. So could it be,
It
kind
to
of
be a professional.
writing, review of hotels and resorts? Could that be the thing?
Yeah. Basically, that I could write posts
Why
about
not?
how amazing it is to spend a night in the Egypt pyramid and stuff like this. That I
Okay.
can review amazing places in the world, but that I need to jump from one place to the other because travels are sometimes so boring. But
No,
yeah,
for sure.
having this opportunity to visit crazy places in the world. We just have access, at least in my life, even that I travel a bit. You just see a tiny bit of it.
Of
There's
course.
so many things to see, and I wish I could have that opportunity.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Okay, so it
No,
had to be a profession where you could travel.
Yes, travel and visit and write about stuff. No,
Yeah.
pretty much those TV shows, the lonely traveler, and those sort of things. No, for sure, I like that
That would
one.
be awesome.
Yeah. Now, a final question, and here I'm not sure, but you mentioned in our conversation that you did an internship in England, right?
Yep.
I don't know if you already went
Greece.
to Germany.
Mentioned to Greece.
Greece, and I don't know if
Yeah.
you already went to German offices from
Yes.
Bosch.
Okay.
So the final question here is: name your favorite dessert of each country that you visit or you lived in.
That's hard. So living, I never live outside of Portugal, with the exception of this internship and summer school in Greece. I will, however, from the 1st of July, have an international assignment in Germany, starting for 4 years. Over there. But desserts, they are not. I don't know if they are strong in desserts. They are more in this like crazy schnitzel, the big panados, so big foods that that they have over there.
Germany, yeah.
In Germany, yes.
Yeah.
But in Greece, they had a very cool dessert over there that I loved, but I don't remember the name. But it was delicious. And
Can you describe it somehow? No.
So it was extremely sweet, so you could not take it a lot because otherwise it would be too much. But you were like, okay, this is the correct bomb. But I've been also in South America, and over there, from our, let's say, brothers and sisters from Brazil, bolo brigadeiro for me is one of my. I get lost. Chocolate, I get lost with chocolate desserts, so I can give that one.
And in Portugal, anything in particular that you would like to vouch for?
Pastel de nata. Yeah, I love it.
The good old pastel de nata.
Yeah.
Pastel de nata with the coffee. Right now it would be nice.
Delicious. It's delicious, exactly.
Very well. Sarah, do you want to close this one?
I can close it. Thank you so much, Sandra, for this conversation. I think it was very good to get to know your story, and I hope this conversation will also inspire our listeners and also other girls, like we mentioned on this conversation. And I hope everyone enjoyed as well. And I see you in the next episode of ACTO. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.